welcome to the show. My name is Luchia Dragosh.
Hi everyone, I am Noran Omar.
And I'm John Collins. Hi.
And today's topic is create change. And we have three wonderful guests with us. I'll start with, they'll start with a little introduction of themselves. So let's just go from Karesia. If you can say a few words, who you are, what's the mission of your organization, and then we'll move on to Bianca and Daniel.
Sure. Hi, everyone. It is an honor to be on this panel today. Thank you for having me. My name is Karesia Batan. I am the founding executive director of the Queensboro Dance Festival. We are a summer-long program. We tour throughout the borough of Queens in different public indoor and outdoor spaces, providing dance performances and classes where we present only Queens-based dance companies for Queens residents. And our mission is to strengthen the dance community here and garner a greater appreciation for Queens dance.
Great. Bianca?
Hello everyone, my name is Bianca Hayles. I am the founder of the THY campaign, also known as the Hidden Youth Campaign. It's a social media, social justice campaign that tries to raise awareness of differently abled youth in the juvenile justice system, which make up 85% of the youth that are incarcerated. And I want to raise awareness of this because of a whole youth justice initiative that I was a part of at John Jay College, the college that I recently graduated from. And after that, I just went off and I just went on Facebook and Instagram and created this initiative, and it grew from there. And I'm hoping to make it into a nonprofit soon. We try to raise awareness of the differently abled youth, also teach others about their unique misunderstandings, and also try to advocate on their behalf, whether socially, politically, and economically.
Great. Daniel?
Good afternoon, everyone. It's an honor to be here with Bianca, Karesia, and everyone else. My name is Daniel Puerto, and I'm one of the co-founders of the Love Wins Food Pantry, which is a response to the insecurity that our local immigrant communities in Jackson Heights has been facing as one of the epicenter of COVID-19. And what's unique about the Love Wins Food Pantry is that it's a pantry that is LGBTQ-led and people of color-led, which really in the community provides a safety space for our transgender, non-conforming LGBTQ people of color, but also creates awareness of homophobia and transphobia within our communities. And so we're tackling like popular education and food insecurity through the Love Wins Food Pantry. Mm-hmm. We're a community group and not a 501c3 yet, but we're exploring incorporating in the next year or so. We feed over 500 neighbors in the Jackson Heights community every Friday.
People tend to think of dance as an ephemeral time bounce kind of activity. What's the value of dance for both the performers and for the audiences you're serving by bringing them to these people?
Yeah, you're right. That is a common notion of the dance workers here in New York City. And we work very closely with Dance NYC, which is the citywide advocacy group here for dancers, that we are necessary workers, that we are legitimate workers that have jobs and careers that pay our bills as well. And it became especially apparent during quarantine and this crisis that we're dealing with right now, both on a local health level, but also on a local social level, that our purpose as dancers is to address what's happening now. And not just what's happening now literally in the news and in our neighborhoods, but how everyone's feeling about it. There's not a whole lot of space that people allocate for themselves or for their communities to feel and to connect and to express. And so as dancers and as a community of dancers, especially through our programming this year, which pretty much went virtual like everything else, it felt especially meaningful and important to give our dancers a platform to express, because they may be expressing on behalf of others in the community that are feeling the same way and maybe don't have that opportunity to share or articulate what everyone's going through. And it felt important to be able to give dancers a meaningful purpose, to be able to connect with one another, but to also connect to their fellow neighbors and to be able to provide that service to our community as well.
What inspired you to create the Queensboro Dance Festival?
So I'm a dancer myself. I was born in Flushing. I grew up right over the border in Connecticut, and then I came right back. And I founded the festival 7 years ago now. And when I came here, just like many artists, you're ready for the New York hustle to build your career as a dancer. And I lived in Queens, but I kept finding that I was leaving the borough every day to find my community, to find my opportunities, to go see shows, to go to auditions. And it felt, after a while, it felt like I was missing something, that there has to be a community here in our borough where I live, and I don't have to keep leaving it to connect to my career. So I started the festival really as a way to kind of take a lay of the landscape and see who else was out there, as a way to meet other dancers, to see what people are working on, what cultures are represented in dance, because with Queens being so diverse, I knew there had to be representation in the dance industry as well. And it kind of took on a life of its own. And there is an amazing dance community here that reflects the diverse landscape that's here. And I know that there's more to discover here as well.
Noran?
Great, thank you. Bianca, I actually wanted to know, how did you become aware of the problem of the social justice, and what made you take that step, even though you just graduated from college and focusing on the youth?
Yes, absolutely. Well, it started off, I was part of a fellowship called Pinkerton at John Jay, and it's focused on youth justice. After doing a previous internship at the Fortune Society, where I got to work with formerly incarcerated youth and helping them navigate re-entry back in society, getting them on their feet, education, and etc., and getting jobs. I felt that passion for working with youth, and especially youth that's been in the system, and realizing their unique circumstances and how this, especially schools, play a big role in pushing them into these systems. And not only that, but society as a whole, and neglecting these youth of color and also youth that have unique disabilities. But in particular, the class I took a part of that fellowship really opened my eyes, because I told my professor that I really wanted to learn about youth that were disabled and how they are impacted by the system. And there was very little research about this. And that really was striking to me, given the fact that it makes up 85% of youth that are incarcerated in the system. So I was just like, how is there not enough research out there? So as a social change project, I decided to create the Instagram Die campaign and create the whole campaign to raise awareness of it, and also dismantle the school to prison, to help dismantle the school to prison pipeline, but also the disability to prison pipeline, because about 2.9% of youth that are disabled are more likely to end up, 2.9 times more likely to end up in the juvenile justice system than their fellow peers without disabilities. And that was just really sad to me, given the fact that I am a sister of a brother that has autism, someone that's passionate about youth and education, equality and equity. And I just want to do something about that and educate my fellow peers.
Great. What are some challenges that you have faced in creating this Instagram platform? Were you afraid that not a lot of people would interact with you? Like, what are some challenges that you faced, and what were you hoping on achieving?
Absolutely. I think definitely a challenge at first was educating myself, because since there's not a lot of research out there, I had to do a lot of digging and educating myself, not only based on what I already knew, but also trying to expand my knowledge about particularly disabled youth in the system, and how do they even end up there in the first place? Not a lot of people have heard, of the school to prison pipeline, but not the disability to prison pipeline or the special education to prison pipeline. And really educating myself on those matters, it took a while, because I do want to be informed when I come to speak to other people. So that was definitely a challenge at the beginning, but also just trying to break down things simply for people, because a lot of people are not even aware of the juvenile justice system. Most people are more familiar with the regular criminal justice system, but when we start to talk about the juvenile justice system, people don't know the nuances of it, or hear a lot of cases about youth that are incarcerated, or even realize that there are detention centers around the city, and how that impacts youth and also the criminal justice system ultimately. So educating myself, but also then when I do educate other people, know how to break it down for them and simply explain what is happening around them and how they could contribute into awareing other people, but also making action about how they could change their communities and also impact legislation around them. Because a lot of people feel like they don't have a voice, or even college students or youth themselves feel like they don't have power in this system. And I want to empower other people to realize that they can make that difference.
Daniel, I'm so impressed with your project and the double benefits that it brings to the community. First of all, it's addressing the problem of feeding people, which is unfortunately a very real problem right now. And then secondly, attacking the bias and attitudes of people toward LGBTQ people. So could you explain how that came to you and how you developed this idea?
I've been a community organizer in Jackson Heights, focusing on the intersections of LGBTQ plus communities and immigrant communities. And so as someone who grew up in Jackson Heights in such a culturally diverse community, since the age of 14 years old, homophobia and transphobia have been issues that I've been tackling not only within my own family, but within the community. And, the perception that our non-LGBTQ plus community members have is that the LGBT community wants you to be at the next gay pride, rocking the flag and saying how much you love LGBT people and or accept our quote unquote lifestyle, right? What we just want is equity, not equality, but equity. We want to be treated the same way that everyone is treated. We want to be respected the same way that everyone is respected. It's really, really concerning that in this time of our lifetime, transgender women of color are the ones that are killed the most within transphobia attacks and live below poverty lines, that we're still not able to create a ladder, like Bianca shared, that doesn't criminalize people of color, but in this case, transgender people of color. And so as a Jackson Heights resident, living in one of the most LGBTQ vibrant communities, but also one of the most diverse communities in New York City and in New York State, we wanted to first tackle hunger in a safe way as an effect of COVID-19. So we were like, we need to build strategic partnerships with LGBT establishments that will help us operate our food pantry distribution. So we strategically partnered with Friends Tavern, which is our Jackson Heights Stonewall bar in our, it has a lot of meaning to us, like the Stonewall has for our movement in Manhattan. And then we wanted to make sure that it was LGBTQ, but also people of color. So that when communities saw the people giving out boxes of food, they saw a transgender non-conforming person of color providing aid to them. And in addition to that, we wanted to make sure that we were providing quality food. We wanted to make sure that our communities were having access to dignified food. So we collaborated with World Central Kitchen that provided us food for 3 months up until the end of October. And these were quality fresh produce baskets. We did not resort to providing canned food as someone who has cancer, who has melanoma, skin cancer. Anything that I eat that has sodium or preservatives, chemical preservatives, directly affect my health. And so we wanted to make sure that we were providing quality food so that the community out there sees a person of color, a transgender non-conforming person of color, an LGBTQ person of color, feeding them with quality and care, and building a community. And to really, to quickly wrap up, the history of transgender women is that they're forgotten by their families, by their peers, by the community around them, and they build on alternative families. In this line, during just the last 3 months, an older adult that may not necessarily have had an interaction with a transgender person is asking about that transgender person when they're not there early enough or when they cannot come because of health issues. And for us, that's transformative justice. And for us, that's transformative love and care and building community by really living in a space that we should all living in, which is catering to our needs, but also doing it through the lenses of love and equity and respect.
It's a brilliant concept. I'm sorry, it's a brilliant concept, and it's both beneficial from 2 points of view, and I really am impressed with that. Sorry, Luchia.
Yeah, absolutely. And who can benefit from the food that you give out? Is it only for LGBTQ community or everyone who comes?
Like I shared, we have an older adult asking for a transgender person and missing them. Our line are intergenerational. We've had during the summer, one of the biggest impacts for me personally as someone who grew up poor in Colombia was seeing 12, 13-year-old children making lines to feed their families. Children became breadwinners of their families, making lines for their pantries as their parents were navigating unemployment. Older adults, there had been 3 storm days, tropical storm days, where it was cold, windy, and pouring rain. And our older adult line still wrapped around the block. So we service everyone. We do have an older adult line and we have a general line. Everyone is welcome to come every Friday to our location to access food.
Bianca, for anyone who wants to start something like you did, what would you suggest going back now if you learned from any of your challenges that you faced? What would you suggest how they should go about it?
Growing up in this generation that's very technology based and very heavy on social media, I feel like we already have a lot of people that want to start now that are around college age, that's just like me, could easily start. They have all the tools to do so. You're already on social media every day, and you're already expressing your opinions about issues all the time. We have a platform, even if we realize it or not, and it's about accessing it and leveraging it and being strategic with it. I feel like it's just about being consistent, having a plan, and being passionate. I think if you have all those 3 things, it's a no-brainer. It's about applying yourself. I took a lot of time out and just thinking about, what do I want my mission to be? What do I really want to do with this? I want to end mass incarceration when it comes to youth. I want to get fix the education system, especially within New York City, and making sure it's equitable for all, especially when it comes to disabled youth. They're typically left behind a lot of the times. A lot of expectations are lowered for them. It's very complicated, and a lot of times people push them to a side when it comes to education. When you compound that with being a youth of color in the education system in New York City, it just gets exponentially worse. And then if you're poor, it's just like you're left with very few options for success a lot of times. People have to go, like if you live in Southside Jamaica, Queens, which I do, you don't have access to equitable education. I went to school in Long Island City and other parts of the city and Queens as well. And I could tell you the school district looks completely different from my neighborhoods. So I could only imagine if I stayed in my neighborhood and gain education, a lot of opportunities that I was granted in my life so far, I probably wouldn't have had them. And that's a sad reality. And just imagine being disabled and all those other things compound with that. It's really tragic. So I think that having the passion for whatever you want to start and being consistent and doing your research it's just seamless, because in this generation we have a lot of tools at our hand, and it's just about navigating it and just being persistent.
Karesia, how about you? I know that you created this dance festival. What about others that want to create a festival and interacting with other, like for example, you interacted with other dancers to create this festival? What piece of advice would you give them?
Everything that Bianca said, and I am a little bit older than her, it so resonates with me. It really does begin with your clear intent, which needs to be fueled by passion, because that's what keeps you on track. And as long as you recognize the need and that need is clear to you, and you stay committed and dedicated to that need, if you're filling a gap, that's your mission right there. And this may be because this is the only way I know how to organize, but I have become such a believer in grassroots organizing. Especially with the political climate that we're going through right now and have been for the past 4 to 6 years. There is so much power in local community, and I so strongly believe in that. So it is worth the time and the research and the investment in literally knocking on doors and meeting people and showing up, not just physically, especially since we can't do that now, but being present, being emotionally present for people, listening to people, identifying the needs, and identifying the connections you have across the people that are in your shared community, to really harness that power of working together towards something, makes a huge impact for the greater good.
I'll just say this though, when you had your festival online, and it was during the pandemic, the lockdown, I think a lot of people benefited, and correct me if I'm wrong, but people felt isolated, and seeing something that you shared every single day, I believe there was a performance, that probably brightened somebody's day, or somebody was inspired. So congrats on that. But do you think from now on you will include always virtual performances, or you'll just go back to everything the way it was, if we could, whenever we could?
Yeah, that's been a huge inspiring lesson, because at first it felt like a limitation, right? Dancers are used to being in space. We feed off energy that are people that are in, sharing the space with us in person. But after a while, we started realizing that, to answer your question, I think we'll do a little bit of both, when we're allowed to do both, because although we asked more of the dancers in terms on the back end, like they also had to learn some technology things on their own because we couldn't be there with them. But it sort of opened up this new angle of intimacy. It allowed the dancers to share more about their work and about themselves and about what they were going through the pandemic, that I think resonated with a lot of our viewers. And we reached people that were not only in Queens. We had the opportunity to actually be global. We started attracting people from different countries just because they saw that there is dance happening, and there's free classes happening online, and maybe they discovered us because, this particular week we were featuring classical Indian dance, and somebody was interested in finding that. And then they find out that the following week we were doing Greek dance. So that internationality, which is also represented here in Queens, was really inspiring. It made us feel like we were helping someone.
Karesia, we're running a little bit out of time here, but for each of you, what would you recommend? What kind of advice would you give to people who see a problem and want to create change? What's your general advice to people like that when they see a problem?
I am someone, if I identify a problem, I want to do something right away about it. But I've learned over the years that you can't just do it alone. There is a way to go about it so that you are effective, And just listening to what Bianca and Daniel, how the programs that they've built are so inspiring, and the needs that they're serving. So figuring out a way to understand the system that the problem exists within and how to creatively solve that problem, maybe not through the system, but even think outside of the box. And really that answer has been in community.
Bianca, what are your thoughts for someone who sees a problem they want to create change about?
I think that what I've learned over the period of time is listening to the people that are impacted by the issue or the problem, because a lot of times we're looking in and we think that we know how to fix or to solve this problem or to fix mass incarceration or to fix this issue or that issue. But a lot of times the people that are impacted by the issue know exactly what they need, and we shouldn't assume. And I feel like listening is one of the key parts that I've learned throughout creating change, like finding out what exactly do those communities need from you and how you can harness that with your talent.
Daniel, quickly, we have half a minute.
Intentionality. You have to be intentional about the work that you want to do. You have to be transparent, and you have to co-lead. The issue is not about you. The issue is about the community that you're trying to support around you. So it's not about you. It's having intentionality in a community that supports you.
Thank you so much. And that's all from us, from the team of Queens Public Television, Queens Conversations. We'll see you next time. Thank you so much.